Okay, we're going to get going. The beauty of this is it's being recorded. So if people come in later, they can watch the beginning again. But welcome to our college admissions panel. I'm Elizabeth Geis, the Director of College Counseling here at St. Andrew's Episcopal School, and Chad Fulton, our Associate Director of College Counseling. And I just wanted to start the program by saying thank you. Thank you to the participants and to the attendees for being here tonight. We are so grateful to have these admissions officers on our panel this evening to help us learn a little more about college admissions and shed a little light on the ways that our students and our families might start to begin to approach this process. We have prepared them to explore topics such as how an application is actually read in their office, something that's going to vary school by school, and what students can do to stand out in this process. And we will ask them at the end of the evening to reflect on their favorite parts of their jobs and offer their best advice for parents and students as you start or continue to think about college fit and match. We've also layered in some questions related to the current landscape of college admissions, including thoughts about the future of testing in college admissions. It's going to be all crystal ball moment. To be mindful of everyone's time, we're not going to hear from every panelist for each question. They will chime in as they want to offer something that has not already been said so that we can cover more territory. Also, we're trying to focus this evening's discussion on some general approaches to the college match process and not as much on every detail about individual schools, although some of those details will emerge as people describe their experiences or the processes from their own admissions offices. So families, we're not ignoring your questions. If you have submitted one or do submit one that's super specific to a school that's represented tonight, and we'll make sure to connect you with our admissions representatives after the session if you want to follow up. Although we're all more accustomed to this way of gathering than we were many months ago, I will offer a few housekeeping reminders. If your technology or our technology cuts out on you, simply try to rejoin. And if that doesn't work, never fear. We've got the recording coming to you early next week. Finally, we will be monitoring questions that are submitted via the Q&A. So drop some questions in there and we will do our very best to either answer them along the way or answer them at the end of this event as time allows. There is much more to come about the college counseling process here at St. Andrews, and we will share that with you in future communications and events. But without further delay, we want you to meet our guests. They bring to us a range of experiences and years in the field, but what they share is a real commitment to you, to the students who go through this process, and to the dreams that you have for your futures. And that is part of why we wanted to bring these admissions officers to you, to remind you that they are humans who are reading your applications and meeting you at school visits and wanting to work with you. They are people who have chosen to invest their lives in the promotion of higher education and all of its value, tangible and intangible. And they are people who have much wisdom to share with us tonight, both from their current places of employment and their previous experiences. Like you, they are more than just their titles, they are their stories. So let's learn a little bit more about them. I'm going to model how each one of us on this screen is going to introduce ourselves. We are going to ask everybody to share their name, their current institution, any previous experiences or roles in higher education or secondary education, other ways in which they're involved in their school communities, and because this is what is known as travel season for our college admissions reps, even though that might look a little bit different this year, we've thrown in one last question. Every one of us is going to share where in the world we would travel right now, if of course it was not to the campus of St. Andrew's Episcopal School, although I'm already there. So I just already met my dream destination. With that being said, I will begin. Again, I'm Elizabeth Geis. I have the honor of being the Director of College Counseling here at St. Andrews. I've been at St. Andrews for 26 years in a variety of roles, but I have served as a college counselor for the longest and have been working with students here since our first graduating class back in 2002. Around campus, I'm also part of the advisory coordinator team, and I lead the K-12 calendar committee. Fun fact, St. Andrews families might not have known that. If I could hop on a plane and go anywhere right now, I think I would go anywhere where some of my best friends who I haven't seen over the course of the pandemic are. And I think we would probably have a really low key time together. We would be out in nature and we would not have a lot of distractions. And it would be one of those weekends, weeks, could I do a whole month? I don't know, of time with my friends where we just got to enjoy being with one another and being in the presence of one another. So I'm hopeful with the way that our world is shifting that may be in the future, but that's where I would go. Nothing necessarily very fancy, just being with my people. Okay, Chad, over to you.
Okay, so good to be with all of you tonight. My name is Chad Bolton. If I have not met you, I'm the Associate Director of College Counseling here at St. Andrews. This is my 10th year on campus at St. Andrews. And prior to that, I worked in the admissions office at the University of Tennessee, my home state. So worked there, then moved to St. Andrews, where I'm in the college counseling office. I also work with our student senate and help with graduation. So other duties as assigned, and I love every bit of it. If I could travel anywhere, I would go back to Tennessee, specifically East Tennessee, because East Tennessee in the fall with the leaves and the fall foliage is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. So I would be in East Tennessee in the fall right now. So that's where I would go. And I'm going to turn it over to Abby, who's going to introduce herself and where she would go.
Thank you so much. I got a little freezing there, so I hope it's not me. But I thank you so much for that lovely introduction. That was a great way to tee up this discussion. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm Abby Bidmer. I'm from Davidson College. This is my third year on staff there. I'm an assistant dean. And let's see. As far as other things I'm involved in at Davidson, what I do love about our office is we do get to have our hands in a little bit of everything. But recently I took over our tour guide program, which is just so much fun. Getting to work with our students just really kind of grounds you into why we all are here and love what we do. I also lead our McNabb admission program for legacy students and students of faculty, a little admissions workshop. And then I also work on some of our access programs. So our fly-in program, which is a virtual fly-in this weekend and this spring. So those are some of the big things I'm a part of. Man, I feel very torn about where I would go now after hearing yours. I was kind of thinking like I need a vacation. So I would love it. Greece has been on my bucket list forever. I've never been. And I just love, the looks of it. I was a huge Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants fan back in the day. And I recently saw someone that I follow on Instagram was there for 2 weeks on their honeymoon recently, and just everything from the Mediterranean food to the wine, like everything, it just looks like a place that I need to visit. So I was kind of thinking dream vacation, but I do love my family and some of those more personal pieces as well, but really looking forward to our discussion tonight. Thanks.
Okay, Nicole, your turn.
Thanks so much, Chad, and thank you for having us. I am Nicole Mullen, and I work at UChicago. This is also my third year working in the Office of Admissions at UChicago. Like David said, I feel like I'm just repeating what Abby said. We dip our toe in a bunch of different things, but recently I have been running a lot of our summer programs specifically for younger students to hopefully introduce them at a younger age to the University of Chicago. So hit me up if you want some information about that as you are younger students in high school. I am also an alum of UChicago, so that's something about me. And then I guess where I would travel. So if I could go anywhere today, would go to Tulum. And that is because my brother and we have this goal to go to the top 10 beaches in the entire world. And so far we've been to only one of the 10 of them. And one of them is in fact in Tulum. So I think that would be an easy point to go to at this point.
Awesome, thank you. That sounds amazing. Amber.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me tonight. My name is Amber McFarland. I'm a regional admissions officer with the University of Georgia. I am regionally based in Dallas, Texas, so I do not work on our campus in Athens, Georgia. So that is something that as you're going through the college search process, words are hard today, y'all, it's almost Friday, you will find that not all of us are based on our campuses, so we might be closer to you than you think. I have been with the University of Georgia for about 3.5 years now. Prior to that, I worked for my alma mater, Mississippi State University, also regionally based in Dallas, Texas, recruiting the great state of Texas. So this is my 7th travel season, and I've been in admissions for, I guess this is 6.5 years now. And in terms of other things that I'm involved in, it's a little bit harder to get plugged in when you don't exactly work on your campus, but I work really closely with our transcript review process and also work with our Division of Academic Enhancement to connect students that may need a little bit of extra support with that support on our campus at UGA, and also work internally with some of our communications and event registrations, supporting our team in that way. So thanks so much. Oh, where would I go? I forgot about that part. The most important part. So travel season has been busy, as Elizabeth shared with you all, that we are on the road meeting our students at this time of year. I would go to the mountains, literally any mountains. I'm not super picky, but would love to disconnect and be in some cooler temperatures than we have here in Texas would be really amazing. And to be outside in natures, like I said, I'm not super particular, though I am partial to the Rocky Mountains in Colorado because that is where my husband and I got married.
Oh. Okay, Kristen.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Kristen Burrows. I use he, him, his pronouns. I am currently serving as the Director of Recruitment at the University of Houston. I have been in my current role for almost 2 months. So prior to that, I worked at Washington University in St. Louis as an Associate Director of Admissions. Prior to that, I got to, it's really cool because I'm serving on a panel with her. I got to work at the University of Texas at Austin with another one of our panelists, Alex. Fun fact, y'all, was my boss for like 3 years. So really, really cool. But this is my 5th recruitment cycle. I've been in higher education for about 9 years now. So it's crazy to think it's been that long, but I oversee our recruitment strategy. And so I'm the kind of tasked and charged with leading all of our recruitment efforts. And so any emails or fun things that you get related to UH probably comes across my desk at some point. But I am involved in a lot of things here at UH. And so outside of that, I can't remember what the other things were. But if I could go anywhere right now, I am from the Midwest. I'm from St. Louis, and I miss fall, cool weather, but I'd have to go fantasy and go to Wakanda because I just imagine that COVID's not a thing in Wakanda, right? And the technology there is probably amazing. And I'd probably teach at the University of Wakanda. So really, really cool. So yeah.
That is an awesome answer. And last but not least, Alexandra.
All right, hi y'all. So I apologize. We really are human beings. This human being has a puppy on her lap. This is Tansy. There's also a Catahoula in this room with me, and I'm just trying to keep them apart. So I'm, in addition to dog wrangling, I'm Director of Central Texas and National Recruitment for the University of Texas at Austin. I've had the joy of being with UT Austin for the last 6 years, serving basically kind of in this role. And national recruitment really just means they sort of observe our strategy because we are, of course, 90% Texan here at UT Austin. I myself am from Connecticut, but they let me hang out in the Office of Admissions anyway. Prior to being at UT, I was with Bard College and for a time focused on Bard College at Simon's Rock, which is the nation's only fully residential college for young scholars where our students were starting college at the age of 15. And then prior to that, I was on the secondary side for about 5 years. So as I recently told a group of seniors in the chapel at St. Andrews, I have been in college admissions and the like longer than they have been in school. At UT, I am involved in training application readers. I'm involved in our appeals process. I help to work with a lot of our strategies around the state because we know the state is big and beautiful and varied. And I personally only work with 4 schools in the entire state, and I handpicked them because of the counselors who I love to collaborate with. And we're looking at 2 of them on the screen right now. And if I could go anywhere in the world, I have to say my colleague from Davidson does have it right. Greece is wonderful, and there's a perfect little cafe called Cafe Nomatini that is right beachside on Parisa, which is the black sand beach in Santorini. And if I could be there right now with a giant cucumber and feta salad, oh my goodness, I would be right there. So, but I would still have puppies, always puppies.
That sounds like an amazing trip, and that salad sounds delicious. Okay, we're going to jump right in with some of the questions that we have for you and the things that were on some families' minds. But we're going to start out kind of basic, some of the nuts and bolts about introducing your school, obviously location and size, and tell us a little bit about how you review applications and get to know high schools. So we're just going to open it up for everyone. And whoever wants to chime in, but this might be one that everyone answers.
Well, maybe I'll just jump in, just feeling a little hometown pride. But truthfully, if I also could be anywhere else, I'd be just back on St. Andrews campus. So we here at UT Austin are conveniently located right here in the city of Austin. As you could see us from 360, you can see us from 35. You can see us from a lot of places, honestly. That tower is pretty big. We are a tier 1 research institution. We have 13 individual schools and colleges that comprise our university, everything from the Macomb School of Business, which is the #5 business school in the nation, public or private, to the Cockrell School of Engineering, to our College of Education, Steve Hicks School of Social Work, to our School of Information, which has everything from UX design to social justice informatics and biohealth informatics. So if you have students who really love statistics, information, using that to make data-informed decisions, it's all here. And being a tier 1 research institution just means our students have access to everything, because while we have 50,000 students total on our campus, 40,000 of them are our undergraduates. So our undergraduates are the heart and soul of our campus. 98% of our students will do research. Over 95% of our students will have at least one internship, but the vast majority of them have so many more than that. We're ranked 2nd in the nation for the percentage of our students who do study abroad, because for as wonderful as Austin is, we like to see them go away for a little while. Can't change the world if you don't get out there and see it. We have a 97% retention rate from freshman year to sophomore year, because we work really closely with our students starting at orientation to make sure that they have everything that they need to adapt in the way that they individually need to. For some students, it might be academics. For some students, it might be emotionally, others socially. For some, it might be within the community. And we view it as our role to be there and to be all of the resources that our students need to be successful in every facet of their academic life. And I think I will leave it at that, because I know we're going to get into more questions about applications and review later. So that was a quick overview of UT Austin.
Yes, I can go next. We can continue our journey in the state of Texas. We are a little bit further away than the 10 minutes St. Andrews is to UT Austin. I work at the University of Houston. We are also a tier 1 research institution. Only 3% of institutions in the entire country can say that. So we're in pretty good company. We are the state's 3rd largest public institution, with about 47,000 students, about 35,000 undergraduate students. And we are one of the newest Power 5 universities. We just got invited and accepted an invitation to the Big 12 conference. And so as a football fan, I am really excited to be at an institution that has a lot of school spirit. We've got more than 110 majors to choose from, and we have to be located in, I know this is going to be controversial, but I think Houston is the best city in the state of Texas, y'all. And this is coming from someone who used to live in Austin. And so I'm officially a Houston convert. Houston has everything you can imagine in it at your back door. And literally, we're just south of downtown Houston. And so we have an amazing skyline. that is full of a ton of Fortune 500 companies. We've got nowhere else in the world can you go to the NASA Space Center, see a Beyonce concert, and go to an Astros game all in the same time, all in the same day. So pretty challenging, right? So Alex is shaking her head because I drank the UH Kool-Aid, right? So, but it's a really amazing place. We're an incredibly diverse institution. We affectionately refer to ourselves as the powerhouse because you really truly can come to UH and be whatever you want to be. But I'll leave it there for now.
I can go next. Both cities are wonderful. I don't live in Texas, so there are definitely fun things about both. So Davidson, I think, is probably the smallest of the group here. We're located in Davidson, North Carolina, which is about 20 miles north of Charlotte, which is where I am tonight and live. So very easy to fly into and just half hour up the road. But it's a really quaint little college town. So kind of think brick, sidewalks, little shops and restaurants. We're also right by Lake Norman, which is one of the largest lakes in North Carolina that students have access to. And Amber, we are 2 hours from the North Carolina mountains. So if you want to get away, that's maybe a little closer. And so as far as just kind of the high points of Davidson, please reach out to me if you want to get a little bit more detail as well. But we're a liberal arts college. We're about 2,000 students. So it's on the smaller end, all undergraduates. And so with that liberal arts approach, students really do get to explore. We have, all of our majors are programs of strength. Some of our most popular ones are political science, economics, biology. We do have a really strong pre-med track. About 90% students get into medical school from Davidson with that, so they can do some mix and matching. Because of the close relationship with faculty and because we're all undergraduates, students also do have a lot of opportunities for research at Davidson. Study abroad is very popular. About 80% of students study abroad. We're also Division I athletics. So I think we're one of the smallest colleges that competes at that level. We have about a quarter of the student body are Division I athletes. And so a lot of school spirit and pride, more than just our basketball team. And yeah, that's kind of the high points. Oh, we're also known, the last thing I will say is our honor code is something that's really core to who Davidson is. So basically it just gives our students a lot of academic freedoms during their time there, like non-proctored exams, and then just really trusting of one another with belongings and just that sense of community and trust. So that's just a little appetizer. If you do want to learn more, I can put our visit page, in the chat. I know we're here to talk about applications, so I'll leave it there. Thank you.
I can jump in next. So the University of Chicago is located in the city of Chicago, a little bit farther north than Texas. Chicago is the third largest city in the country. So we are located in Hyde Park, which is one of the 70 neighborhoods in Chicago. And it's about a 20-minute bus ride to downtown. So this gave me, as an alum, as a student at Chicago, like the best of both worlds, as we had this tight-knit college community, but then we had all of the great things that the city of Chicago has to offer right at our fingertips. We are also a liberal arts college inside a larger research university. So since we are a liberal arts college, we do have a core curriculum. It will take up about a third of the classes you take at UChicago, but research is a huge part of our undergraduate experience. About 80% of our students are involved in undergraduate research spanning every area of study. We have over 160 different research laboratories on our campus, which is great. We are also a residential college, so you are required to live in our housing system your first 2 years, but you're also guaranteed housing all 4 years. I will also leave it at that. I think we have more questions we want to jump into, but I am happy to chat at another time for more details. Oh, I will say, sorry, I forgot to say, we are about 7,000 undergraduate students. And when you apply to the college that houses all of our programs of study. So not individual colleges, it's all under just the college.
And I think I will close this out. I'm with the University of Georgia. We are in Athens, Georgia. So we're about an hour and a half outside the city of Atlanta, depending on Atlanta traffic in any given day. Athens is definitely a small college town experience. I don't want to give us too much credit, but I have heard some folks say that Athens reminds them a lot of Austin before Austin saw such a huge population growth. We are a very creative community, home of the REM and the B-52s, if you're a music fan out there. So a lot of creative things happening in our college town. Downtown is super walkable from campus. It's one of my favorite things to see. I was there last week, and it was really fantastic to be back on such a beautiful college campus. We're a pretty big place, about 39,000 students total enrollment, but we do have a 17-to-1 student to faculty ratio and over 250 different majors and programs to choose from. So there are a lot of options on our campus. Entrepreneurship and innovation are kind of the buzzwords that are floating around our campus right now. Those are some really popular programs for our students. We were ranked last year as one of the top 2 institutions in the country in terms of products to market. So we had 59 new and unique products, consumer products sent to market last year, which is a pretty exciting statistic for me to learn about. In terms of admissions, we use a holistic review process, which I know we're going to get a little bit into here in just a few minutes, but much like Nicole mentioned in terms of applying to majors and applying to programs, we admit to the university. We do not admit by major at the University of Georgia. So I'll turn it back over to Chad and Elizabeth so that we can start answering these questions.
Yes, absolutely. So yes, as a follow-up to your specific schools, we assume that you're going to learn about students through their application. So can you shed some light on what it looks like once an application is submitted, what you learned from each part, and then how do you get to know a school? Like, how do you know information about what is offered and the rigor of a school like St. Andrews?
I'm happy to jump in here since I closed this off on that last one. In terms of the application process to the University of Georgia, we are a holistic or a whole student review process. So we look at everything that you submit. We don't have automatic admission standards where we just look at your GPA and your test score. As a side note to that, we do require test scores in terms of having a completed application at the University of Georgia. But we're going to look at everything that you submit. So that's going to include your GPA, rigor of curriculum, so how that you've challenged yourself while you've been in high school, your test score, your essays, your activities and your involvement, letters of recommendation if you choose to submit those. And we learn a little bit about you by everything that you submit. So in terms of your GPA and rigor, we're going to look at your transcript and see what have your grades been like? What have your grade trends been like? So did your grades increase as you learned how to study better and prepare for your classes better as you went through your high school career and gained some maturity? In terms of rigor, we're going to see what classes have you taken. So that might be advanced placement or dual enrollment or IB or honors classes. And that's going to depend on your high school. So we're going to learn about your high school through the school profile that your wonderful counselors will share with us. And they'll also specifically for UGA share a counselor or school evaluation form that lets us know more information about the rigor available to you and what exactly you have taken advantage of as an individual student. We're going to look at your test scores. So for the University of Georgia, ACT or SAT, we don't have a preference. We just want to see which one that you took. We do super score, which means we'll take your highest subscores to give you the highest possible composite score. We're going to look at a couple of short answer essays. I think the theme of the evening is that we want to remind you that we're real humans. We're not robots. So we're going to be real humans on the other side of the computer screen, reading your essays and ultimately getting to know you and seeing what your experience has been like. The same thing with your activities and involvement. There's not a perfect combination of extracurriculars and jobs and volunteer work and whatever it might be, because again, every student experience and is different and every high school experience is different. And then in terms of recommendation letters, we just want to get to know you through those as well. We want you to ask people that know you really well to write those rec letters for you so that we can get to know you from somebody else's perspective. So my best piece of advice when thinking about those recommendation letters is not just who can write me a rec letter, who can write me a really good recommendation letter. So being thoughtful about that as well. Those are a little bit of all of the pieces in terms of what does it look like on our computer screen. That answer is going to be a little bit different for each of us, depending on what specific piece of software or technology that we're using. At UGA, we specifically use a program called Slate. So that is what we use to review applications. Pretty straightforward. There's nothing super fancy about it. Though I will say one of my favorite parts about reviewing applications in the fall using Slate is that around the holidays, there is a holiday mode. So you can click the holiday mode button and either, I think it's, there's like a fireplace that will come up in the background and some holiday music will play. So again, continuing with the theme of we are humans and not robots, and we like those little fun things as well.
I'd love to build on what Amber was sharing by also letting y'all know that around February on Valentine's Day, you can hit a button and it will go pink and it'll play Lionel Richie. And that's my favorite part of Slate. But let's talk more about holistic review. So again, we're very human here. Now for UT Austin, we are also very invested in the holistic review. And so while here in the state of Texas, under Senate Bill 175, see, my parents hoped I'd be a lawyer, and I still get to invoke Senate law all the time. We do have automatic admission, and holistic review applies to those students who are even automatically admissible under law. So when we have schools that don't rank, I know that those students get really, really worried. How is this going to impact me? Am I going to be at a disadvantage because all the spots are going to be taken in the majors I want by students who have first dibs? For us, holistic review applies to major as well. When you apply to UT Austin, you are going to be applying directly to the major that you want, and not because we want to lock a student up in a tower and say, well, that's it, you're a sociology major till, kingdom come, but because we want you to just kind of have a place to start where you're excited to just dive in. And, within that first semester of freshman year, you get to get your hands on and start working with a faculty member who's a leader in their field in something you're excited about. So, but even when students are not automatically admissible, we're going to be doing a full holistic review. They're automatically admissible, not automatically admissible, holistic review to look for an academic fit for that major. So not just academic ability, but we want to see drive, passion, interest. And truth be told, sometimes it will be students who are not coming from a rank background or who are outside of that rank who will show us a fit and a connection and a passion that can be stronger than that. And that's when we can use those extracurriculars, we can use those essays, we can use those letters of recommendation to get that fuller sense of who you are as a person and who you're going to be in a classroom and as a peer. Because we know that students not only learn from the faculty, but in a college education, you learn from one another.
Oh, I was just going to say, I feel like everything that was said by both Amber and Alexander is very spot on with the word like holistic review. Like we read every piece of the application as well. Some of the things that do really stand out though, and I think there is a lot of similar to the rank fear is the rigor fear. And how am I going to be compared, especially at large public schools in Texas? Some kids take 1 million APs, and when they're limited like they are at St. Andrews, just know that as admission officers, we look at that right away. Context is a huge piece of that review. So that was just something that I just wanted to hammer home, that we look at students who have challenged themselves in multiple areas. It does not mean that you have to max every single discipline. Not everyone is, a math whiz or a foreign language star, or there just are classes that you probably really want to challenge yourself and are performing really well in, and some that you're more comfortable at different levels. So please know that as we're looking at applicants and we have that context in the profile, as like I'm looking at it, right? I was looking at it earlier today, it's bolded, it's asterisk, like it's very, very clear to us as what a student's challenge looks like in the context of St. Andrews. So that was just one piece I wanted to add quick.
Okay. Thank you all so much. Those were great answers. I'm going to turn it over to Elizabeth, who's going to lead us through our next round of questions.
Okay, I maybe cleverly or not so cleverly was thinking about this next set of questions as the more things change, ... the more they just keep changing or the more they stay the same. And this is all about thinking about where we are now, right, in this world. One of the things I think Chad and I often hear from parents who are out there listening is this just feels so different than when I went through this process. And our parents are wonderfully supportive of their students and they want to know how to best support them. And I think that for a lot of us right now in this college admissions world, even things that we thought we knew until a year or two ago, things have now changed. So thinking about your work in your admissions teams, in your institutions, what, looking back over the last 2 years, has changed? What hasn't changed? Maybe it's in the way that you review things. Maybe it's in the physical aspect of your office. Maybe there are different priorities. Maybe you've gone test optional. Maybe that was just a brief experiment. Maybe you think that's here to stay. Maybe you've always been test optional. So that was nothing new and the rest of the world needed to catch up with you in higher ed. Whatever it is, what's this landscape looking like right now in your worlds?
I feel like you teed me up right there, Elizabeth. So at U Chicago, I'll talk about testing a bit, because we were test optional years before COVID happened, and essentially most schools went test optional. So we originally went test optional because we recognize the fact that standardized testing isn't necessarily the best way for every single student to display who they are academically. And at the end of the day, the most important thing we want is that all of the students feel like they can put their best and whole self into their application. So if standardized testing is a good way for a student to display who they are academically, we give them their opportunity to do so. Please do include that test score, the ACT or the SAT, and we also do super score. But also, if you could be incredibly intelligent and a bad test taker, have a bad testing day, not have access to a testing center during these past crazy years that we're still in maybe, or you might not have the financial capabilities to take it multiple times or have a tutor, and we will never disadvantage you for things outside of your control. So as admissions counselors, one of the important things that we do want to gather from your application is a sense of who you are academically. However, with test optional, the only required document for us at U Chicago is your transcript. That by and large, that is where we're going to get the best sense of who you are based on your school context, the type of classes you're taking, and how well you're doing in them. Anything beyond your transcript is completely up to you if you would like to include it in your application, and then we will see it, but your application will never be disadvantaged if you don't have anything else. We will be test optional for the foreseeable future, and I'll turn it over to some of my colleagues to talk about their outlook on testing.
I can kind of continue the test optional train. So we are one of the newest institutions. This is only our second year being test optional. And so for you all as Texans, we have what's called assured admission. And so really the takeaway for UH this really kind of over the last few years has been to give you options, right? And so if you are, as Nicole mentioned, someone who is a good test taker and you've got kind of strong academic performance, really your GPA and your test score are really what we need to get you in to the institution. But as Nicole mentioned, if testing has been a little bit of a challenge, you haven't really had access to these things, we want to give you an option to apply to us as well and not be disadvantaged. And so what that means for us is if you apply without a test score, we simply ask that you either answer the essay that is either in Apply Texas or the Common App. We don't have a preference. And utilize the resume portion of either Apply Texas or the Common App. That's it. That's really it. We simplified it this year so that you don't have to send in additional documentation. You can just answer the essay prompt, which you got to write, right? So you got to write that essay, and the resumes. And so we use both of those in a holistic fashion to get a sense of who you are, why you're interested in UH, and academically, what does the last few years look like for you? I was literally reading applications right before we started, and several students mentioned COVID. We all know that COVID was a thing that happened, right? It's still happening to us. And so, the essay is something that we are really utilizing to get a sense of who you are alongside those grades, right? And alongside how you've been involved the last few years. So for us, really the takeaway for us is you've got options in this process.
I can go next. Testing obviously is definitely a really hot topic, so I don't want to overlap too much, but I will just say as far as things changing, I think probably all of us had some kind of change in our committee review. And that was kind of, not to get too far ahead, but one of my favorite parts of the job is the committee-based discussion. So at Davidson, we have an early decision, everyone, we have the entire committee, and then we have smaller groups for regular decision applicants, but that was all over Zoom this year, which was a little bit different, seeing everybody's face really close up. I felt like it was just a lot more tiring than when you were kind of in that room together. So that was one change for us. And Davidson, similar to Houston, it was our second year being test optional. I will say before the pandemic, it was the last thing that I would ever say in my information sessions about what we look for. So like you've heard the word holistic review a few times tonight, and probably as you continue the college search. And that really is true in how we look at things. We just care so much more over that cumulative experience performance than one Saturday. Like I remember the fire alarm went off personally during my ACT. It was just not fun, and it was very stressful. So I especially share to seniors that are working on their applications, like please do not stress about this. It really has never been a driver of our process. We're committed to being test optional next year. After that, I don't know what the crystal ball holds, but there is just kind of a lot to talk about. It's a really interesting subject. I will say the only students that I see testing as like a requirement or something ever helping is sometimes when there's a school that we're a little bit less familiar with, maybe it's in a rural location that we don't get to visit, we're not very familiar with their curriculum. Sometimes that testing performance can give some comfort over the academic strength, but I think personally and as a staff in those circumstances, we're talking about definitely don't want that to ever work against a student where we're just not that familiar with their high school. So St. Andrews doesn't really fall into that category of very familiar with the curriculum, but just do want to give a little bit of larger context to some of the testing conversation. One COVID kind of tip, and I feel like Kristen, you touched on this a bit, is it was a shared experience. And I think last year I did see, in that supplemental COVID section of the Common App, some students, would, and I get where this comes from, but wanting to be very comprehensive and saying like, I could not be a camp counselor because camp was canceled. And, I couldn't do marching band because how could you do that virtually? And while I do understand that, I think, and as students, who are sophomores, juniors, that are in it right now and maybe have been even more impacted, you're just trying to focus on what you were able to do during that time. And we understand that looks different. If it was like, I helped my younger sibling for 3 hours, on their homework every week, or I picked up a new instrument or language. And so I think looking at what we were able to do at that time, it was weird. We're not out of the woods yet, but I do think that's one of my best advice to students is when you are writing that list about extracurriculars, just being a little mindful of the tone that can strike if it is just kind of a list of everything that you weren't able to do. So you have some time, but just kind of a little bit of something that I did see that was new this year.
I'd like to share one thing that I find to be, gosh, this feels odd to say it, like a weird silver lining that we might have all experienced, is that we do speak so often about holistic review, and we always have, all of our schools. UT has opted to remove the requirement for test scores for this year. We removed it for last year. We're still not sure how things are going to be moving forward, but I feel like it really affirmed for students the fact that everything else really does matter. Things were not horribly skewed from how they have been in the past. It really showed that even when we've been reading with test scores, they have not been who a student is. They have not been the most important factor in decision making, even when they were present. And so the small silver lining I've seen in all of this is that it's almost lent a little bit of credibility, because you've been able to see, families have been able to see, students have been able to see, wow, it's, even without this, you really were able to see my aptitude for this. Or, I was going to be someone who probably wouldn't have scored so well on the test, or I was probably going to be someone who did score well on the test. And what else I am bringing to this campus and who I am as a person, other than, as Abby said, 4 hours on a Saturday morning on a Nature Valley granola bar. is significantly more important. And so I think that our 9th and 10th graders are in a really wonderful spot because there's always that emphasis in getting the classes, getting the tutors, putting hours and hours and hours into prepping for the tests. And I wonder what it could look like if these same students maybe took a step back and instead put even half of those hours into something they were deeply passionate about instead. So it might also save a little bit of money on all of those classes and tutors and prep courses too. So perhaps, loved ones might be happy about this, but I hope as well that people saw that holistic review really has always mattered, and taking test scores out of the equation proved it.
I will not repeat all of the things that my wonderful colleagues have shared. They are all spot on. But I will say that this is a good time to know that it's always really important to ask the colleges that you're applying to what their policies are, because the University of Georgia is not test optional. The University System of Georgia Board of Regents has said that all 26 public schools across the state of Georgia must require test scores to consider a student's application complete for review. Can you tell how many times I've said that sentence? Because I'm a little bit out of breath there at the very end, because I've said it so many times, very well rehearsed. But it's important to know that you should always ask what policies are when you're applying to those institutions, because we do require test scores. That being said, much like Abby, test scores are not and have never been the most important piece of our review process. It has already been said, we would much rather see what you have done in 3 years in the classroom versus what you did in 3 hours on that one Saturday on that Nature Valley granola bar. So always, always, always important to ask.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. We're going to move into the next round of questions, which is, we often hear from families or students that, obviously they want to stand out in the application process when it gets to your office, or, they maybe are unsure about what they should be doing to prepare for submitting applications. But what does distinctive mean in a positive way? And on the flip side of that, maybe something that's like not a way that you want to be distinctive. So a negative way to be distinctive.
I can start us off. I am, as I mentioned, I'm fairly new to my current institution. But one of the mottos that I learned at my previous institution that I'm adopting in the culture and the way that we view things here, which it already was. I think I'm just kind of bringing it out of the staff a little bit more, is to know each and every student by name and story. That was the motto. That was like our guiding principle during my time at my previous institution. That is something that is my admissions philosophy. My personal admissions philosophy is to really know students by name and story. And so really through this process, you get to share your name and your story with each and every school you're applying to, right? And so some students got creative during the pandemic and helped out their communities in a ton of different ways. And so, but some kids were just like, just getting up and logging on to Zoom class was all I could muster. So be authentic and real with yourself in this process. And it's okay. Like we mentioned earlier, this is a shared experience that we've all been through, but don't feel the need to force things on your resume that you're like, well, I didn't do anything over the last 19 months. Are they going to judge me for that? It's like, a lot of us sat around the house in our sweatpants, right? Like, what are real clothes, right? So, so really, we understand that it may have been a little bit challenging for you to kind of navigate this experience. So that's okay. But yeah, don't feel the need to force things. So I'll kind of leave it there.
I can jump in here. I think one thing that I really value in an application, while like every institution on this call right now is amazing for so many ways, we all employ holistic review. We're similar in a lot of ways. We are all so different in a lot of ways. And I think when you're able to pull out those specific details about the university that makes them unique and explain why that's perfect for you, I think that's a really good way to make your application stand out. And also to the opposite question about like maybe cautionary things, you now have a sense of who we are as your admissions counselors for these specific universities, but we will never be the only person to read your application. So please make sure that anything you put in your application will be comfortable for anyone to read. Occasionally, I think it's a product of some of our weird essays, but we come across some things that are just like a little cringe. So please do keep that in mind, that through committee, a lot of people are going to see what you put in your application.
I could not echo all of these things more. I've seen so much cringe in my career. And you remember it. You'll remember it. You remember it forever. However, to capitalize on what Kristen said, I want to almost take it to that another level beyond the authenticity. If I could offer a single piece of advice, particularly when it comes to writing essays and going through this process, and Tansy will go through the application reading process with me. She's only 5 months, so she hasn't been through a reading cycle yet, but she will learn so much. Is please do not compare yourself to anyone else. We know that as our students go through this, particularly our students who have the luxury of being in like smaller communities where everyone's really close knit, you can't help but share and you get to know everybody. And I've learned this actually being on the post-decision side of things, where I'm alarmed by how much families know about students in other families, from test scores to exactly what they do outside of school to different, all of these accomplishments. And every single student is individual. And part of holistic review also means that you are looked at individually, as in your own little bubble. When I'm reading a student, they're the only one who exists in the whole world in that moment. And I'm not going in wishing they spoke Russian or wishing they had started a company and taken it public before they were 14 or something. Please don't do that. Just don't do that also, like don't. But I'm appreciating you in your context. And so that means that whatever you share, because it's yours, it's important and it matters. And so when we ask you to tell us about a special event in your life, or we ask you, like for UT Austin, our main essay is tell us your story. And 17-year-olds are like, I've only been alive 17 years. I don't have a story. They often think, oh gosh, well, this person has done this mission trip and this person did this research and this person did this. And I babysat my 3 younger siblings for every summer for like my whole life. But that's important. Helping to take care of your grandparents is important. The family camping trips that you go on are important, and because they're yours. So be authentic. Don't try to aggrandize because you think we need to hear it. Don't try to aggrandize because you know somebody who rescued someone from falling off a waterfall. Just be you, because you're the only person who matters to me in that moment. In terms of the flip side of that, in terms of not being distinctive, sometimes students stress about, well, okay, goodness, every student from my senior class who was on the soccer team, we all went to states this year, and we kind of all probably want to talk about it. We all had similar experiences because we've all been in the same school together. Don't make the mistake of just telling the same experience. Even if your entire senior, soccer team has had that same wonderful experience, you each had your own experience on the field. Tell your experience, because who knows, maybe your experience was how sick you felt on the bus ride to the game. Maybe your experience was not about like anything on the field. Tell your experience, because that's the problem, is so many students do so much telling and not enough showing. And we just kind of get these sort of narrations of resumes, when all I'd really love to know is, who are you? How do you feel? What was that like? And so just be you, be authentic, show me, don't tell me. And you can even start thinking about this now. You might have a moment where something small happens where you go, ooh, this is my college essay. I can feel it. So if you have that spark, write it down in a notebook or put it in your notes app. I'm old. Sorry, I still write things down.
Retweet all of that. Couldn't have said any of that better.
I was going to say the same thing. I had goosebumps at like little parts, like as just in the be authentic. I think I came from that, I've been out of high school for a while, and I remember there was so much emphasis when I was going through this process on being well-rounded, and you had to kind of be a little bit of everything and like have the title. And like, I think I'm kind of glad to see that I really feel like college admissions has focused a lot less on that. And we want you to be your true self. So all of that has really been said. One thing that does make distinctive, and Nicole mentioned this, but my one little soapbox when I do talk to students that are applying to my institution is, we ask that why us essay, and probably a lot of us ask some version of that. As counselors, we can tell so quickly why for me, it's, why small liberal arts. And so like, if it's small classes and study abroad and pretty brick buildings, while that's all true, that's true at a lot of places other than Davidson. And so we actually do some workshops and things if that piques your interest. I'm like, I literally went through examples, some students was like, North Carolina is really pretty and I went on vacation there, and like, that's why I want to go. And I'm just like, that's wonderful, but there's a little bit of a missed opportunity. So I think help us picture you on our campus. And I think that is a really lasting impression. One thing that we do ask for at Davidson that can be really distinctive is a peer recommendation. So we actually have you send your friend a form. So it's not like it's a full letter, but we hear some really wonderful things about students there. We're a small campus. We want to get to know people. And so that really shows some wonderful like character traits. Like last year I read one that it said, the applicant was the only friend who showed up to my bassoon concert. And I was like, that's a very kind friend. Like, it really left an impression on me. I'll have to find a different example, but that one just really kind of struck me as a high schooler. And then I think as far as, what's bad, there are a few things that are bad, but I think, you will hear this in essay writing workshops down the line, but I think any mention of like, I hate the college admissions process, or you write your essay on not liking essays. I've read that. I'm sure we all have. And I think sometimes students want to be edgy. They want to be memorable, and that doesn't leave the best, taste in our mouth. This is our life's work. And so I think that is one way, maybe a bad impression. And I think sometimes, some topics, I think just, you have great counselors to point you in the right direction. But I think, making sure that you shine through, like there are essays that I will just remember, forever in a great way, or a line in a recommendation. So it's all of those authentic pieces that can really make you stand out.
Very quickly, before we move on to the next topic, do any schools use demonstrated interest as a factor in their process? And would you mind explaining what that is to you?
Am I the only one nodding my head? I think I might have been. Yeah, so we do use demonstrated interests. I think it looks a lot different. I should have mentioned this in the COVID section, but it kind of used to be, there's something, if anyone's looked at any college admissions books, there's something that we, LTE is a phrase that we use, which is likelihood to enroll. And so I think when we're reading applications, we're trying to gauge, the likelihood of, if I admit this student, will they come to campus? And so trying to be, intentional, especially, if everyone came, we're a small community, we can't do that. So I think we used to look for a physical visit. Honestly, my first year reading, it was like, have they been to campus? And that was a huge comfort. I think COVID, really opened our eyes, and, shockingly, so many students from Texas, can't come to North Carolina for a campus visit, and their parents can't take off work and miss a day. So I think we just like to see some engagement. So it really is kind of checking one box, like at minimum, of just, like, hey, like, have you sat in an information session virtually, or a virtual tour, or done one of our workshops? I think just seeing that there's some connection. And also in that Why Davidson essay that I mentioned, that is another place where students, that's sort of part of how we look at demonstrated interest, is seeing how specific that is. If it's, a really well-written essay about, something that has nothing to do with Davidson, we're going to be a little skeptical of whether that student really wants to attend or not. And so I think that's really how it plays into our process. Really, like, one visit or interaction is kind of the minimum, but after you submit your application, like I keep all correspondence in a student's file. And so not that you need to email me weekly, like you say hi if you like. We get a lot of emails, but I think, students, I did a Zoom call sorry, there's a motorcycle outside my road. But yeah, I did a Zoom call with the St. Andrews student like this fall, and we just chatted for about 30 minutes, and that's in there. So I think it looks a lot different than it used to, but we do like to see some interaction at Davidson.
Thank you so much. I'm going to turn it back over to Elizabeth, who's going to guide us through our final round of questions.
Excellent. I love how all of these answers kind of flow into one another. We heard from Amber, check out the policies of your school. And if you looked at Davidson, you would say, oh, I do see that that's important, and demonstrate interest in other schools isn't. And students, if some of this feels like a lot right now, this is your first, dipping your toes into this really beautiful, if you like Barton Springs, natural springs pool, if you prefer a swimming pool because Barton Springs has scary monsters in it, imagine a pool, but you're just getting started, right? And so we're going to be here to guide you through every step of the way. And that is also how we want to round out this evening. We are going to hear from everybody for this last question, and they are going to share with you two things. And one is their favorite part of the job. Some of them have already hinted at it, but favorite part of doing this work. Why, out of all of the things they could be doing in the world, do they come back to this year after year? Do they feel called to do this work with you as the students? And then their best advice for students and parents at this juncture. They know that the people that are listening right now on this live call are 9th graders and 10th graders and their parents. So best advice is you are starting this journey to think about college fit and college match. And hopefully some of the things that they offer might sink in and you might carry them through for the rest of high school. So let's do this for this order. Let's go in the same order that y'all introduced yourselves at the very beginning. So Abby, I'll turn it back over to you. Favorite part of the job?
Yeah.
Advice.
Oh, gosh, that's hard. That is very hard. Well, so I will admit, just for a little bit of context, this is sort of a second totally industry for me. I was a commercial banker for 7 years, and then came to work in admissions. And so sort of a little bit about why I worked in admissions as an undergrad, and I just love being on a college campus. I love, meeting and interacting with students and getting to know them through their applications. And just, I think those relationship pieces are really important to me. And I just see so much value. And, there's so many wonderful schools, like you'll end up at a place where you're going to thrive. But I think, helping students navigate that process and demystify this admissions world. And then when they get to campus and you get to meet them, actually at Davidson at freshman orientation, the first day of move-in, they didn't do it this year, but the admissions people are the ones who check them in. So it's like full circle. We've gotten to know you. And then we're like, oh, I remember your name from hearing that. So I think that personal connection working with students, and just, they're getting to know them. That's a lot into one. But if I had to pick one piece, early decision reading is my favorite, just because it's the whole admission team. And then I think my piece of advice is, I think at this juncture, really just take it in and kind of see where your interests go. I think the more you get to know places now, the sort of better off you'll be when you are that, senior, writing essays, or, junior, like getting a little more deep into it. And I think my best tip is, use what's exciting to you. Like, we have an Instagram account that I think is like one of the best ways to know Davidson. It's called the Davidson Daily. And if you follow it, you see student takeovers and you see the campus, and you can maybe see if you start picturing yourself at some of these places. So I think kind of right now, taking those small steps at just like what sort of interest, and go down those rabbit holes. And don't be afraid to reach out and ask questions. But I think at this point, like freshman, sophomore year, like just kind of get excited that you have such a wide net right now. So I think instead of being intimidated by that, I think just focus on getting to know places and all of the different ways that you can.
Awesome. I think I was next. I have to say, I also like so much of this job, but if I had to pinpoint one piece, it would be committee, because one, selfishly, I am a very competitive person. I played sports all growing up, and I think that my students that I'm trying to admit are the best students in the entire world. Texas rocks. But also, I think that the other piece that I really enjoy is chatting with students about maybe U Chicago, but more so just about the fact that there are different types of schools out there and that students actually have power over this process. Like, you get to choose what schools you apply to, and make sure they're the schools that you want to be at, right? So often I feel like the students feel so much pressure to like get in, like I have to make the schools, the universities like me, but in fact, you get to choose where you are even attempting to apply to, which I guess kind of leads me into my advice of start now, start thinking about what you want your time in college to look like. Maybe start a running list. I'm also a pencil on paper type of person. So I had sticky notes all over my home growing up of things that I liked about colleges. I probably lost half of them, so I wouldn't recommend that strategy. But I would say don't say no to anything at this point. I think just open up your eyes, talk with your counselors, with your parents, because eventually you're going to hone it down to some things that really matter to you. And then when you find the schools that have those things, you're going to be a great fit and they're going to see that in your application.
This is such a good question, but such a hard question to narrow down what we love about our jobs. I think one of my favorite things about the work that we do is getting to move with a student through the process. So when you work at one place for several years, I've been at Georgia for 3.5 years now, you get to know your students earlier. So starting, sophomore, junior year, you get to know a students as they're reaching out and asking questions, and then you work with them directly through that admissions process, and get to watch as they mature throughout that high school career in the application process. And then when it comes to the end and they receive their decision, either, helping them move forward if they're admitted to your institution, and find out, is it a good fit? Is this where I'm going to spend my college career? Or if they're not, helping them figure out what next steps are, what does maybe a transfer admission plan look like, or what does figuring out what exactly your best perfect fit is. And so I really enjoy that piece of getting to follow them through that process and really support our students, which leads me directly into my advice is that we are here for you. We do not do this job because we don't want to talk to you, and we don't get mad when you send us emails. It is literally our job that we enjoy doing to help you through this process, to make it the least stressful process that it can be for you. So if you have questions now or in 3 years about what it looks like to come to any of our institutions, or just to say, hey, can you connect me with this person because I have questions, that's what we're here for. So don't be afraid to reach out to us, because we ultimately do want to hear from you.
Yes, I will echo all of the sentiments that my colleagues have mentioned. I would say hands down, the students and the people. The people are really what make this job fun. Literally everyone, and people is inclusive, right? And so people being your school counselors at St. Andrews, they are some amazing humans that are helping guide you through this work. Your support network. So, if you are part of a community-based organization, or you have folks that have taken an interest in mentoring and helping guide you through this process, we get to know them alongside you in this process, and we really get to kind of try and imagine your community joining our community, right? And so the people are hands down what makes this job fun, which is why the last few months have been challenging for all of us, because we literally couldn't do the thing that we got into this work to do, and that was to meet face to face with the people. But my advice is really to, y'all are early enough, sign up for mailing lists, go participate in summer camps. Universities, I think all of us will have some kind of pre-college summer program that you can participate in to really start to get a sense and a feel for what does it feel like to be on a college campus. Even if it's not an institution that you're thinking or considering, you at least start to kind of put yourself in the mindset of what it feels like to wake up in a residence hall and go eat in the dining facilities and take classes and explore the city. And so I would probably say the people, and then signing up for those mailing lists and doing those pre-college things are my pieces of advice.
So we all clearly got into this work for the same reason. So I won't copy anybody, but I think I'll try to speak to it from a place of having been on the college counseling side and having the pleasure of being on this side of it for pushing 10 years now. which is that it's really just such an honor to be working with young people at such a pivotal time in their lives, but more than that, to also be working with their loved ones. It's amazing to be watching our students kind of sort of growing and emerging and becoming those young adults. They kind of go and incubate in that college setting, and like they get to have this amazing academic playground where they're also sort of figuring things out socially and professionally, but also to be watching loved ones, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, invested people in their lives, lean in and then step back. Because that's also really just key part of this, and kind of just getting to be there. And sometimes I think we all get to play that really special role of being this go-between, of helping a student get to push their voice forward, get to hear the parent, get to translate for a parent or a guardian, but also get to translate for a student so that everyone gets to be heard. And so I guess I sort of like that role that we have, where we get to just make sure everyone's getting honored and seen, getting their needs met, but also allowing the student to step forward into adulthood. And so I guess that's sort of my piece of advice, even as early as we are now, is just to always remember that the college application process is actually a really vital part of the college going process. Handling applications, reaching out to counselors, making these connections. I have become, I believe, a pretty skilled diplomat in saying, I am loving corresponding with you, but I would really appreciate connecting with your student, because I want that. I want the student to know that they are responsible for themselves, but also that I trust their voice, and I trust their thoughts, and I trust their goals. And y'all are doing such a wonderful job of raising these young people and supporting these young people. And I know you do too. So as you go through this with them, remember that I know that Kristen can vouch, and he might shake his head, but I know that they might not have known how to use a spoon before you taught them. But yeah, Kristen knows I always go to that. But even at this time, it's very, very big. It is a time to let go so they can develop the skills that they will need to be most successful in college, in their lives, and in their careers. And that's why you have people like Elizabeth and Chad, and that's why you have people like us. We are all there to support you, and we will take your calls, but we also want to take theirs.
Well, every year that we do this, I think it can't get better, and then it does. And tonight was just one more bit of that, always making this program more special and more meaningful. And St. Andrew's parents, you may be thinking, oh, I think that Chad and Elizabeth scripted them to say all those things, and we did not. They knew what questions we were going to ask, and we trust them in our work together. We've had so many conversations with all of them, and we always share with them that they are invited as our admissions panelist guests. Yes, because of the schools that they represent, but really because of who our panelists are and the ways in which they do this work in this field that we are all a part of together. And I love that that was so much the theme of tonight. We're all in this together. So St. Andrew's families, students who are out there listening, we are all in this together, and that means you too. Huge thank you to our panelists for being here. It was just another stellar conversation. This is one of our favorite events all year. Yes, claps all around. I'm sure that's happening on the other sides of screens. We are going to wrap things up out of respect for everybody's time. It's a Thursday evening, or as I heard it referred to recently, Friday Eve. So here we are, we're almost at the end of the week for St. Andrew's families. This is our first 5-day week in a while. So congratulations, you've made it this far. We are really grateful to have been able to begin this conversation. St. Andrew's families, you'll be hearing a lot more from us about what happens for you as 9th graders and 10th graders as it relates to this college search. But we feel like it's important to start this conversation with the people that are a part of it, which is everybody whose face you can see here on this screen and everybody on the other sides of their screens at home or in the car or wherever they may be. We hope you have a better idea of what this process will look like and really what's at the heart of all of it, and that you're already starting to think about some ideas of ways in which you will be able to grow personally, to have it be a process of self-reflection and self-discovery and show your best self, whoever that is in a few years from now when you are applying to college. So thank you everybody for joining us, and have a great evening.